Congratulations on your purchase of the M&R Kruzer screen printing press. This video is designed as a supplement to the manual you will receive with the press and will take you through the assembly procedure in detail. Begin by carefully inspecting the shipping boxes for signs of damage in transit. If you find that the equipment has been damaged in transit, notify the freight carrier immediately. M&R is not responsible for damage that occurs during transportation. Please read the manual and watch this video completely before beginning the assembly and installation of your press. Your M&R Kruzer has been designed for ease of assembly, but requires basic assembly skills using some basic tools. You should have an understanding of how to use each of the tools we'll describe. If you have any questions regarding the assembly of this equipment, please contact our customer service and technical support departments before proceeding at 800-736-6431. After hours, weekends, or holidays, call our 24-hour emergency service hotline at 630-462-4715. To assemble your Kruzer, you'll need the following tools: 3/16, 1/4 inch, and 5/16 hex wrenches. A ratchet with a 5/16 hex socket will be helpful. 7/16, 1/2 inch, 9/16, 3/4, and 15/16 combination wrenches. An adjustable wrench. A rubber mallet or a hammer with a wood block. A 9-inch torpedo level. A length of rope or a large C-clamp. A tape measure. And a roll of masking tape and a marker. Your Kruzer will arrive ready for assembly in 7 lettered boxes. Depending on the shipping service selected, these may be palletized. Please be aware that the boxes and some of the parts can be heavy. You should get a second person or a hand truck to assist you when moving them. Be sure to use a knife with a shallow cutting depth to avoid scratching any components inside the boxes. Before you begin, locate and remove the owner's manual with the written version of these assembly instructions in Box B. Please review the contents of each box and confirm that you've received all the necessary parts before beginning assembly. If you find that you're missing a part, please contact customer service, the technical support department, or our emergency service hotline before proceeding. Clear some space to work and then begin opening boxes. In Box A, you will find 4 legs and 4 leveling feet. You will also find a bag of hardware that contains 1 3/8-inch washer, 10 3/8-inch lock washers, 2 3/8-inch by 1 1/2-inch socket head cap screws, 8 3/8 by 2-inch socket head cap screws, 16 5/16-inch lock washers, 16 5/16 by 3/4-inch button head cap screws, 1 collar, 4 greased bearings, and 1 spacer. In a second bag inside the first one, you will find 6 spacers, 6 tilt washers, 6 5/16 by 1-inch button head cap screws, 12 black 3/8-inch lock washers, and 12 3/8 by 5/8-inch socket head cap screws. In Box B, you will find a red envelope containing the owner's manual and warranty information. Be sure to fill out and send in your warranty registration card as soon as possible. Next is the bottom carousel. You'll also find 6 side clamp mounting tubes and the bottom shelf with a serial number plate attached. This is where you will find your press's serial number for warranty registration or parts ordering. In Box C, you will find the top carousel, the carousel mount support, the top bearing flange and lock assembly, and the center post. You'll also find a bag of hardware that contains 6 pre-assembled headstop bushings and 6 pre-assembled mounting shafts. In Box D, you will find 3 print heads and 2 15 by 16-inch standard pallets. If you ordered larger pallets with your press, they will be shipped in a separate box. In the hardware bag, you'll find 6 partially assembled spring supports consisting of 12 spring guide rods attached to 6 rear spring supports, with 6 front spring supports slipped onto the spring support rods. In Box E, you'll find the remaining 3 print heads and 2 more 15 by 16 inch standard pallets. In the hardware bag, you'll find 12 springs. In box F, you'll find 4 pallet arms. And in the last box, box G, you'll find 12 screen holders. Before beginning assembly, make sure you have adequate space for the finished press. The Kruzer itself is 8 feet in diameter, but you'll also want to have enough working space around the press to allow for setting up jobs and the ability to move flash cures and other equipment into position at each station. The Kruzer consists of 3 basic components: the base, the pallet support arms, and the print heads with side clamp mounting bars and side screen holders. You'll begin assembling the Kruzer at the base. To start, you'll need the 4 leveling feet and the 4 legs. Before installing the leveling feet, set the lock nuts on each foot to 2.5 inches from the end of the threaded rod. Screw the leveling feet into each leg up to the lock nut. The nut should be finger tight against the base of the leg. Next, you'll bolt the legs to the bottom shelf and the carousel mount plate. You'll need 4 5/16 by 3/4 inch long button head cap screws with 4 5/16 inch lock washers for each leg. Using your fingers, loosely assemble the legs to the bottom shelf and carousel mount using the button head cap screws and lock washers. Both the shelf and the carousel mount plate are angled to match the angle of the legs, so if things aren't fitting together, stop and check that the parts are oriented correctly. Be sure to leave some play at each screw point to allow for adjustment in the next step. Assemble the remaining legs in the same way. Be sure to leave all of the cap screws loosely fit. Now you'll add the center post to the base. For this step, you'll need the center post, 3/8 inch washer, 3/8 inch lock washer, the 3/8 by 1 1/2 inch socket cap screw, and the split collar. You'll need the 3/16 and 5/16 hex wrenches to complete this assembly step. Look closely at the 2 ends of the center post. The top end of the post will have a deeper bevel cut than the bottom end. The center post must be installed in this orientation in order for the remaining parts to fit correctly. Confirm that you have oriented the center post correctly and install it down through the carousel mount. And slip the split collar onto the center post. Using the 5/16 inch hex wrench, secure the center post to the bottom shelf with a 3/8 inch washer, 3/8 inch lock washer, and 3/8 by 1 1/2 inch socket cap screw. Tighten the cap screw securely. Before proceeding, confirm that 7 inches of the center post is extending above the upper collar. If the measurement differs, confirm that all of the leg screws are loose and pull up or push down on the center post to adjust. Using the 3/16 inch hex wrench, evenly tighten the 3 set screws on the carousel mount to hold the center post in position. Now you'll position the split collar on the center post. Push the split collar firmly against the carousel mount and tighten the screws with the 3/16 hex wrench. Now you can tighten all of the leg screws securely. The lower and upper carousels install on the center post. For this step, you'll need the 2 sets of bearings, the spacer, the upper and lower carousels, and the flange. You'll anchor the assembly with a 3/8 inch by 1 1/2 inch socket cap screw and a lock washer. Install the first lubricated bearing on the center post. Be sure that you orient the bearing with the tapered side up. Before you can install the lower carousel, you'll need to completely remove the tape covering the hub. Orient the lower carousel so that the flat side is up, and gently lower it down until it settles completely onto the first bearing. Install the second lubricated bearing onto the center post with the tapered side downward. Be sure it seats inside the hub of the lower carousel completely. Now install the spacer and add the third bearing to the center post with the tapered end up. Before installing the upper carousel, completely remove the tape covering the center hub. Orient the upper carousel so that the print head mounting points are facing upward, and lower it gently onto the center post until it settles completely on the tapered bearing. Install the final bearing onto the center post with the tapered side down, making sure it seats completely inside the upper carousel hub. Then install the flange on top of the bearing. Finally, secure the center post and carousels using the 3/8 by 1 1/2 inch socket cap screw using a 3/8 inch lock washer. Tighten the socket cap screw securely with the 5/16 inch hex wrench. It should be snug, but not so tight as to restrict movement of the carousels. The pallet arms install onto the lower carousel plate. For this step, you'll need the 4 pallet arms, 8 3/8 by 2 inch socket cap screws, and 8 3/8 inch lock washers. While holding the pallet arm in place over the lower carousel, visually align the inside mounting hole in the arm with the inside mounting hole in the lower carousel. Insert the cap screw with a 3/8 inch lock washer through the inside mounting hole and into the threads in the pallet arm. Tighten the cap screw as far as possible. Repeat the process with the second cap screw for this arm. When both cap screws are in and the pallet arm is positioned correctly, tighten both cap screws firmly. Repeat the process for the remaining pallet arms. Once you have the pallet arms installed, you can install the pallet arm lock assembly. For this step, you'll need the lock assembly and a 1/4 inch hex wrench. Use the hex wrench to loosen the screws of the collar on the carousel mount, then rotate a pallet arm over the collar. Install the lock assembly so that the ball of the lock just fits up into the V in the bottom of the lower carousel. Firmly tighten the screws on the collar with the hex wrench. Test the tension setting by moving the pallet arm in and out of position. To adjust the tension, turn the adjusting thumb screw clockwise for a tighter stop position and counterclockwise for a looser stop position. Now we're ready to install the print heads and their spring assemblies. The spring tension holding up the Kruzer print heads is adjustable. If you're planning on using larger screen frames or heavier roller frames, more tension will be required to keep the print head in the up position. Before we start mounting the print heads, we'll prepare the spring assemblies. You'll need all 6 spring assemblies and all 12 of the black springs. Begin by removing the front spring supports from the spring assemblies and sliding the springs onto each spring guide rod. For more spring tension with heavier screen frames, insert the front spring support with the axis of the eccentric pin toward the top of the assembly. For less spring tension with lighter screen frames, insert the front spring support with the axis of the eccentric pin toward the bottom of the assembly. Prepare all 6 spring assemblies with the same tension setting and set them aside for the moment. For the next step, you'll need the print heads, the pre-assembled mounting shafts, and the pre-assembled headstop bushings with their hardware. Working on the upper carousel with the lower carousel in a locked position, rotate one of the print head mounting brackets into position over a pallet arm. One end of the threaded mounting shaft has a flat edge. Remove the nut and one washer from this end of the shaft. When the shaft is inserted, the end with the flat edge must match up to the keyed hole in the right side of the mount. This is a step that may be easier with a second person. Position the print head in a vertical orientation between the mounting brackets. Align the brass bushings with the mounting holes. While holding the print head in position, slide the mounting shaft into the mount from the left side. Gently shifting the print head position will ease the entry of the shaft into the mount, or you can use a rubber mallet or hammer with a wood block to gently tap the shaft into the mount. Once the shaft has reached the right side mounting bracket, you'll probably need to rotate it to orient the flat edge of the shaft with the keyed flat edge in the mount hole. Once the edges are aligned, use the mallet or hammer and wood block to gently tap the shaft the rest of the way into the mount. When the shaft stops, there should be a small amount of unthreaded shaft left exposed on the left side, about the width of the washer. Place the washer and nut back on the right side of the shaft. And use the 3/4 inch wrench to loosely tighten the nuts on both sides of the shaft. In the next step, we'll insert the spring assembly into the print head. Be aware that parts under spring tension can cause serious injury. After the print head is lowered, the springs will be compressed and the head will be under extreme tension. The head must be held down to the pallet support arm securely by affixing a clamp or tying the head down with rope so that the head cannot spring upward and cause injury. Once the headstop bushing is fully installed, the clamp or rope holding the head down can be removed. This procedure must be used for installation of each head. Install the smaller rear spring support of the spring assembly into the mounting bracket on the carousel. As you bring the head down, rotate the spring assembly up and insert the larger front spring support into the black slots in the head bracket. You can now let the head rest on the spring assembly. For the next step, you'll compress the springs as you bring the head down into contact with the upper carousel. If you're working alone, have a large C-clamp or some rope ready to tie off the head to the pallet arm. Having a second person hold the head down as you tie it may be helpful for this step. Remove the bolt and bushing from one of the headstop bushings and position the bushing between the upper mounting holes. If you have trouble inserting the bushing, loosen the nuts on the mounting shaft. Slide the bolt through the mounting holes from the left side and thread the nut back onto the bolt. Secure the bolt head on the left with an adjustable wrench, while you firmly tighten the nut on the right with a 3/4 inch wrench. Then securely tighten the mounting shaft bolts. Once the head bushing is fully installed, you can remove the rope or whatever device you used to secure the print head. Repeat this process with the remaining 5 heads. The print heads are now ready for the side clamp mounting tubes to be installed. For this step, each print head will require one side clamp mounting tube, 2 3/8 inch lock washers, 2 3/8 by 5/8 inch socket cap screws, 1 spacer, 1 tilt washer, and 1 5/16 by 1 inch button head cap screw. You'll use the 5/16 inch hex wrench and the 3/16 inch hex wrench. It is very important that you do not loosen the micro adjustment or off contact handles before installing the side clamp mounting tube to the head. If these handles are loosened, the head will not align properly. Load the 3/8 by 5/8 inch socket head cap screw and the 3/8 inch lock washer onto the tip of the 5/16 inch hex wrench. Align the cap screw through the inside mounting hole and into the threads in the micro adjustment plate. Tighten but don't secure the screw to allow for some play while setting the second screw. Repeat the process with the second cap screw and lock washer. When both cap screws are in and the side clamp mounting tube is positioned correctly, tighten both cap screws firmly. Thread the tilt washer onto the 5/16 by 1 inch button head cap screw, followed by the spacer. Align the cap screw through the slotted mounting hole and into the threads in the head plate, and tighten firmly. Repeat this process for the remaining print heads. It's time to level the press. Before you begin this step, make sure the press is located correctly in your shop. If you move the press after leveling, you will need to repeat this process. Index the pallet arm so it's over one of the support legs. Place the level lengthwise on the pallet support arm. Note the position of the bubble. The bubble does not need to be in the center of the level, but it will need to be in the same location over each support leg. Index the pallet support arm 180 degrees over the opposite support leg and note the position of the bubble in the level. Using the 1/2 inch open-end wrench on the lower notched end of the leg bolt, adjust the leg height until the bubble is in the same location as the first leg. Check and confirm the position of the bubble in the level at the first and second position several times and adjust if necessary until the bubble level positions for the two opposing legs match. Now move the same pallet arm 90 degrees over the third leg and check the bubble level. Adjust the height of this leg until the bubble level position matches the first and second leg's bubble positions. You may have to tilt the press down so that the foot pad makes contact with the floor and hold it in position to accurately read the level. Rotate the pallet arm 180 degrees over the fourth leg and check the bubble level. Adjust the height of this leg until the bubble level position matches the first, second, and third leg's bubble positions. When the bubble is in the same location over each support leg, the center shaft is plumb. Using a 15/16 open-end wrench, tighten the lock nut on each leg. The side screen clamps are installed in left-right pairs at each head. No tools are necessary to install the clamps. Identify the left and right side clamps. The C-shaped opening for each should face in toward the center of the print head. Install the left side screen clamp by sliding the silver mounting assembly onto the side clamp mounting tube. Install the right side screen clamp in the same way. Start with the clamps positioned at the outside edge of the tube. Insert a screen frame and reposition the screen clamps to keep the frame centered in the print head. Leave a 1/8 to 1/4 inch gap between the edges of the side screen clamps and the screen frame to allow for adjustments. When you have the screen clamps and screen positioned correctly, tighten the screen frame locking knobs on each clamp and repeat the process for the other 5 heads. You're ready to install the pallets on the pallet arms now. Loosen the yellow pallet locking handles by turning them away from the pallet support arm. Slide the square end of the pallet bracket into the channel between the locking knobs and the center of the pallet arm. The bevel on the pallet bracket should always be towards the operator. Position the pallets at the same distance away from the center of the press based on the screen size and image location. To lock the pallet in position, push the yellow pallet locking handles toward the center of the press using moderate pressure.